I'm seeing entrepreneurs use it a lot. And every time I see those little green check marks in a post, I know that they're not using it well. People that use it the best follow my 80-20 rule. So I don't think that any AI is at the point where you can just be 100%. Like it can talk for you, do everything for you. So for me and the people that I work with, I just want to get it to 80%. So if I'm using it to write a post or write a VSL or write a a YouTube script, whatever it is, I want to get it to 80% AI, 20% Chris.
Welcome back to Founder Mode,
the show for founders who want to build smart, scale fast, and show up like they mean it.
Today's episode is about visibility. In a world where AI creates noise every day, how do founders stand out?
We're talking to somebody who's built a system for this. He's taught tens of thousands of entrepreneurs how to use AI, media, and connection to create lasting traction.
Jason, we were just talking about how hard it is for founders to break through the algorithm without burning out. How do you sort of get into that feed? And really this episode's for them.
Totally. I just had a call with a founder that was trying to balance all these different AI tools, their daily content, pitching themselves, and they were drowning.
Yeah, I think today's guest brings the clarity. I think I met Chris a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. Totally media personality, been on a ton of TVs, and it's all about leverage, right? Not about more work. He's helped, a ton of people from bootstrapped, sort of builders to like a ton of well-known brands with their strategy and sort of how to, bring clarity to their message and their brand.
Yeah. And what it brings up for me is this idea that we're kind of in the age of the generalist, right? Like AI tools can help you do everything else or kind of vibe it, as you say.
Yeah.
But like from your perspective, Kevin, what actually matters now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the generalist thing hits a strong key. And I've always thought of myself in many ways as a generalist. And I think the ability to be able to know enough to sort of prompt a tool or to sort of ask the right question to then discover the like wealth of knowledge below that sort of tip of the iceberg. And to me, that sort of like both the intuition to know that there's something else out there, but also the sort of persistence to not give up and just keep pushing and keep crawling, keep poking around and sort of like a little bit of this blind exploration. I think of it as like
curiosity.
Yeah, this analogy of like if you're in a room and you're just like, man, what's over there? Like I'm just going to open doors and kind of poke around and check. And that curiosity pulling you into the rabbit hole over and over again. And I think in the old days, that rabbit hole process was pretty slow, right? You could get it and stay up all night and go deep on something. Now, I find myself stumbling into rabbit holes 10, 15 times a day. As you pop into a chat, you have another thought, I open another tab, open another chat, and you're just like, wow, this is, really sort of.
And you can become kind of an armchair expert thanks to these tools that can educate you very quickly, right?
Probably to my friends, probably too much of an expert, like sort of like, yeah, well, I know that you don't know anything, man. You just have to chat and you're like, well, I know enough to sort of engage in even more of a lightweight conversation around, many, many more topics.
On the flip side, the tools are great, right? But there's also this piece that I think we'll talk to Chris about, which is the idea that audience matters even more and distribution is so important. You had kind of a realization, right, in the past year that drove you to where we are right now, right?
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. I mean, 2025 is like my creator arc, as some people have called it. Like
you're having a glow up is what you're doing. That's what the kids say.
So no, kind of went from not really using social media at all, right? Other than like a little bit of, Facebook way back in the day, to then in 2025, sort of like putting out a bunch of content on X, a bunch of content on LinkedIn, starting this podcast with you, having a newsletter, and all of that initially was sort of like this, like, maybe I could try it. But so quickly I realized that like the impact it was having on the people that I was reconnecting with and the new people that I was meeting, that it sort of like supercharged my energy behind it. And to me now, it sort of comes full circle because it was Chris who was promoting this idea of like build a brand, have a branding strategy. You should be doing outbound and social media for yourself, regardless of what company you've worked in or what sort of project you're working on. And now it's like, it totally makes sense because now I'm seeing the benefits of like having this sort of awareness and saying, oh, like I know somebody because I met them on the podcast or they subscribed to the newsletter or they connected with me on X and I can reach out and I no longer have like 12 followers. I have like 12,000. And like, because of that network, you're able to sort of throw up a, hey, is anybody in this town or does anybody know why? And you can, actually get responses where I think, a year ago that would not have been true for me.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you met Chris over a decade ago. He told you to do a thing. You waited a long time. You've now done the thing, and it turns out it does work, right? And all this interesting stuff is kind of bubbling up as a result of you building your personal brand. So I feel like it's time to get him and get going and hear him tell all the founders listening and watching what they need to do to really kind of catch the train.
Yeah. So Chris Winfield, coach, creator, connector, he's helped tens of thousands of people grow their business and worked with a ton of the biggest brands you've seen, and pretty exciting to talk to him.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. He's built a system around AI-powered social selling. He's also one of the most trusted people when it comes to building real and lasting connections. I think we should just jump into the conversation. You ready?
Yes. Chris, welcome to Founder Mode.
What's up, Kevin? Kevin and I go back really, really far. It's such a good, I have such a good feeling right now seeing you, meeting Jason, ready to talk and go down memory lane a little bit too.
I love it. You've helped tens of thousands of people, with grow their brands, master AI, and just get into all the visible and all the right ways. And glad to have you here.
Yeah. We're really happy to have you here, Chris. If you're up for it, let's just dive in. Let's get into it. You ready?
I'm up.
Let's go. So let's start with the obvious. AI is everywhere. Everybody's talking about it all the time in marketing right now.
Really?
You've kind of been a little bit ahead of the curve. How are you seeing entrepreneurs use it well?
Oh, I'm seeing entrepreneurs use it a lot. And every time I see those little green check marks in a post, I know that they're not using it well. I think the people that use it the best that I've seen they follow my 80-20 rule. So I don't think that any AI is at the point where you can just be 100%, like it can talk for you, do everything for you. So for me and the people that I work with, I just want to get it to 80%. So if I'm using it to write a post or write a VSL or write a YouTube script, whatever it is, I want to get it to 80%, 80% AI, 20% Chris. And the people that I see that are doing that, you're still putting some emphasis on the real part of, you. I think we're getting really close to major revolt against all just AI generated slop. We're really close.
We call it Slopbot here on Founder Mode. People using the Slopbot.
The Slopbot. Yeah, exactly. I love that. So I think that we're getting really close to just normal people even being repelled from it. And it just because it's you're seeing the same stuff over and over. I talk about those green check mark emojis. To me, that's as soon as I see them, I'm like, oh my God, this was definitely not written by a real person. Or, obviously everyone knows about the M dashes. I used it constantly and I still do in my text messages, but I can't use it in a normal post or anything now.
Yeah. How do you find the 80% in there that is good when you sort of train folks?
Call in Steve Jobs. I mean, that's really my favorite thing to do. Is if something comes back way too complicated, I'll just say how would Steve Jobs make this so much better? And literally that simple thing changes the game. It's you could also use Seth Godin or somebody like that, but call in Steve Jobs and it's insane because his thing was simplification. He walked around with literally a simple stick. So you can use him in AI to make something so much simpler, so much better. And he can come up with a program or, anything. It's really, really cool, but that's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I think the idea that you can tell the AI to take on a persona is super smart. And whenever I'm showing people that are new to the tools, and I was literally training a family member the other day, how to use ChatGPT, and I started with you're the world's greatest whatever, right? Or you're Steve Jobs or Seth Godin. I think that is something that wouldn't even occur to most people. And so I think it's a great tip and it's a very helpful tool because then it changes the way it outputs, right? So what are some of the newer tools that or trends that you're seeing and you're using that you're really excited about right now?
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say something with the personas. You could it doesn't even have to be a real person. you can tell it to write copy like Don Draper, and it will write amazing copy based on what it knows about Don Draper. Like I have every single streaming service at home, and I watch 2 of them. I have every single tool that has ever been made, pretty much, and I use 4 tools. So I think that for most people, especially like a lean startup or a solopreneur or whatever, like they're using way too many, and they're getting, then the shiny object syndrome kicks in, where they're like trying to try every single new tool and hoping that every tool is going to be their savior.
How do you strike the right balance between sort of this like automation and authenticity? Like you said, the 80-20, like, do you think of it as you get the 80 first and then the 20, or do you start the 20 and add the 80? Like, have you thought about like which ways worked best in your experience?
It's a great question, and it can go either way, because meaning you can really put in the work up front, where you get really, really clear about everything. And I think the with like prompting or anything like that, I think the for most people, just like talk to it like it's a normal, like you're just talking out loud. Like you don't have to have like this perfect prompt and everything sounds great. Like I just talk to it and I'll explain as much as I possibly can. And like a tool like in this case, like Whisperflow, the WIS. Like that thing's unreal. Like it nails, like it's like you're explaining as much as possible about what you want written or what you want, what the project is, whatever it is, just like it's a normal. And like it will, like AI is so good, like ChatGPT is so good now, that it will take anything and just like be able to make it into something like a masterpiece. But if you take that, so you could take that time there's the 20%, Kevin. Or you give it like a quick intro and just what you need. And then you have to put in the 20% more on the back end where, editing and, that type of thing.
So tell us, Chris, about, you've done a lot of work with your brand, emphasizing connection, right? How do you coach founders to build what are really real relationships in what is now a very noisy, busy digital space?
I think this is the most important thing. This is literally what I tell every single person. Forget AI, forget anything. Like you're starting out, let's say you're starting a new company, and you need anything, whatever it is. You need money, you need employees, you need promotion. I believe that you can get that right from your phone. Start by just opening up your phone book. Start at A, and then like you basically write down a list, like a Google Doc, or you could just write it by hand. But start with whatever the problem is, and then you just go down the list and you look. All right, this person right here, Alistair. Can he help me get? So let's say you're trying to raise money. Can he give me money? Can he introduce me to somebody who can give me money, or can he put me in front of an audience that can give me money? And then you just go and like. Usually by the time you get to D, you've solved your problem. Like it's insane. And that's how it works though. That's the amazing thing. And I think that that's still going to be so important, and probably more important as we move into like cloning and, like nothing being real. Like we're almost there, but like this is real still. And that will still make a big difference, I believe.
Can you share a story where, one smart connection sort of changed the game for someone or someone you've worked with, where it was like, wow, that's just like an incredible example of where this sort of coming out?
Yeah, I have so many. Like for example, I had this one female entrepreneur, and she really wanted to get a major book deal. Kept getting turned down, like by just going in cold. Literally, she's told us, me and my wife Jen, and we introduce her to one person. She gets a multi-6-figure book deal. She's made directly, the book did well, but she's made $3 million directly from the book in terms of consulting in the last 9 months. And like that was just from one connection, being in, the right place, saying like, all right, here, talk to these people. It's just so crazy that how quick that changes everything. When when you have like some type of direct connection with people, changes the game.
I love it. And your name doesn't even start with A, so she jumped right to C, and she got the first person she talked to, and she solved it.
I like the Rolodex move, which is like, because you think about it, it's so funny. Like you go back through, you start looking at your contacts, and it's shocking you forget, especially when you're our age now, where you're like, how many people you've known and met and that are in your address book.
Favor economy is real, and oftentimes asking for advice or asking for a favor can actually unlock a relationship, right? So I think it's really solid advice. And probably a tool that people underutilize. So let's switch gears a little bit to marketing trends. You're kind of in a lot of places all at once, so I'm sure you're seeing things and are ahead of the curve. So when you think about 2025 and we're more than halfway in, what's one marketing trend that you think actually matters this year?
That's a good question. And can you believe that we're halfway? It feels like it's been like 15 years. This
felt like a long year.
It feels so long. So one thing that I'm paying attention to, and I think is really interesting is, and you guys mentioned it, but I want to hear in what way you're doing it, but around clipping, and with like platforms like WAP and things like that. It's a weird blend of organic and paid, because you're paying, even though it's pretty much nothing what you're paying the people to clip for you, and but it can then go viral, and if you have the right people. It's a really interesting one for a bunch of different reasons. One is the authority. So, you keep seeing the same person popping up, and, and they're just like starting to build. And guys have done this much better so far than women. It's a huge opportunity, especially for women. But I think that there's going to be that's going to be something that that is going to grow and that we're going to invest more and more in. Same thing with like, with people that have great Instagram, even the shout out networks, even though that was something that was big many years ago, it's becoming more important now as, you can only spend so much on advertising in front to get to the right audience. So those are two things that I think are really interesting to me, at least. They're not like, I don't know if I'm like breaking any ground or anything like that, but I think they're like two spots that we're spending quite a bit of money on.
I mean, there's almost this sense that the imperfection is actually more, especially now with AI, of everything being too robotic and perfect. That like having it be a little grainy or broken is actually like a feature, not a bug.
It works better in many cases. We've tested this so many times, and it works right now. It works so much better. That's the crazy thing, like that it's like so much more for just like hit record, start talking, and go on like TikTok right now, and like everything that most of the stuff that's trending is not professionally shot unless it's a big creator.
Yeah, it's that not polished, authentic. This can't possibly be AI because it's so real.
It's interesting. I think when you think about like, is there a question that founders don't ask but should? When they're trying to like grow too fast?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the Steve Jobs. How can I make this simpler? I think that because I think most of the times it's the opposite. It's like you look to overcomplicate things. And like, I think that psychologically, many people have this, have this thing in them. So Kevin, you grew up on a farm, and you worked like crazy and you worked so hard. And, I grew up in a household where you always had to be doing something. You couldn't just sit around and do nothing. And so I think I have this thing in me where I'm like, this has to be hard. And then when as something starts off and it's just crushing and you're like, all right, let me this up. Like, like you're saying that like subconsciously, it's like you're doing that. And then that's where we start to put in different things, where like they hire the wrong people, make something so much more complicated, or something's working, stop doing that. Like I've done that so many times in my personal life and my professional life where, something's, I start meditating. I love it. Everything's great. And I'm like, all right, I don't have time for that anymore. So, I think that's where it comes down to.
Let's talk about today's show, because we brought you on because you talk about this thing called building an unfair advantage, right? So when we're talking to founders who's the audience, the folks that watch this show and listen to the show, are they're looking for their unfair advantage. What is that in 2025? What would you say to them, directly to them, that can help them build their unfair advantage?
Yeah, I really think it's the person themselves, and that and this is not 100% every single time, but I think that most founders need to put themselves out there more. And whether that's in, online, building the brand there, whether that's getting in front of people at, events, calling people, whatever it is, I think that that's really the unfair advantage. And that's like the force multiplier where, you start doing that and you're going to get results. Like, it's impossible not to, unless you're a horrible person, then, you don't have an unfair advantage anyway. But for most people, just being uncomfortable, more is going to get them more results. Like, I've learned that for myself over and over where, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go to this event. And then, and I'm like hoping they'll cancel it. And it's like 50 people, and or there's a bomb threat or something. And like, whatever. And then I go and it's like, I get these unbelievable opportunities or meet new people or whatever it is. You're always glad you did it,
If someone is listening and wants to become like the go-to expert in their space, right? And like, I mean, because again, like you say, like, that's like the epitome, like dude that's reached it's still out there doing the reps, which is like an insane sort of thing to see. But also like, it's like Brady, right? You still watch him running YouTube videos. He's still practicing hard. Like, it's still Sunday. Crazy. Sundays are coming. And you're like, dude, this is guys, literally, that's why they're the GOAT, right? Or you watch the Jordan documentaries, right? And like the dude, it was personal and all the lines that just sort of hit. Like, but you're the founder, you're like sitting there, like, where do you start? Like, what's the first move you make or the next move they should make to sort of kind of make that, first jump?
Yeah. So I think that it's a bunch of different places. So the one though is with their content strategy. Like, you have to, I think, now have a content strategy regardless of who you are. And I even believe that for people that have huge platforms already, like athletes, and you see the really, really smart ones like the Jason Tatums or these like where they're building out, all these different things because he knows that his his Instagram is going to help his Everbowl franchises that he bought and blah, 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 blah. So I think that coming up with a content strategy that actually works for you and is going to be, that it's going to actually, bring in results, like, and being like testing and looking and being really clear. It's crazy. So I still believe that helps a lot for for people to develop like who they like their street cred in a way.
Chris, where can people find your work, learn more about what you're building and then connect with you and all your resources?
Connect with me on Instagram at Chris Winfield. Follow me and send me a direct message and I will hook you up and just say Jason and Kevin sent you.
Love it.
Amazing. This was exactly what we hoped it would be, Chris. Thank you for showing up and sharing your insights and practical tips. I'm feeling very energized and I'm ready to go take on the rest of the day. So thanks for being with us, Chris.
Let's go. Thank you guys. It was awesome.
That was loaded with insight. I mean, Chris really brought the tactics that founders can cut through and connect, and some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, he made it simple, like the idea that you can tell ChatGPT to just write it like Steve Jobs would. Kevin, what were your top 5?
Well, I think we got a bunch here, right? So I think the first one was like using AI wisely. So, really having this 80-20 rule where you can use AI for 80% of it, but you need to have at least 20% of you sort of adding your sort of flavor on top of it. And then this idea that you can simplify everything. I think you mentioned Steve Jobs. He also said Seth Godin. Use sort of these known personalities that are ability to have crisp and sort of short, whether it's for marketing or just, really crisp output, and use AI to sort of, use them as your sort of coach. And then this notion of the real relationship, right? He's like picked up his phone and he's like, hey, just go through the Rolodex and really find who do you already know and how can they connect you to what you really need, whether they aren't there or whether it's directly. And then this notion of authenticity beats polish. Like, I think here it is today, like, you stutter on words, you say something, you're a little unkept. Like, that's the true, sort of you. And that, beats this sort of polished AI view where more and more things are becoming too photographically perfect or sort of too prepared to do that. And then this final, your face is your edge, right? It's really like you connecting as a founder with, your audience, your customers, your clients, your potential prospects, and then also employees. And really that's the most unfair advantage you can have in 2025.
If this helps you think differently about marketing, brand building, or visibility, send it to a founder who needs to hear it.
And if you're getting value from Founder Mode, subscribe, review, and share. It helps other founders find these conversations.
We've linked to Chris's content, training, and other tools.
That's a wrap. Because visibility isn't a vibe, it's a system. Build one.